Super Cool Radio!
Hey everyone, before we jump into the show, I want to tell you about our merch store on Threadless. Shop a wide variety of logos with multiple colors and sizes available for each design. Your support is greatly appreciated and helps us continue to make killer content like this episode. Please visit supercoolradio.threadless.com or the link in the description to shop now. Hello everyone! I am Matthew Thomas. This is Super Cool Radio. I have a really great guest with me for this episode. Everyone knows I'm a huge fan of punk music. I'm very happy to be chatting with my guest this time. He's the lead vocalist for Dead Boys and Alter DeFay. Please welcome Jake Hout.
Hello.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm very excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, and before we really get started with everything, I did a new question that I have for this season that I'd like to kick off with. What has been like the most memorable concert you've either been a part of or been to?
Oh man, the most memorable concert I've ever been a part of or been to. Mercy. I don't know, man. There's been too many. I'm just gonna roll with the Burger Boogaloo that we did in Oakland in 2019. It was me and Shada and James Williamson from the Stooges. So that was a hell of a life accomplishment. So that was exciting.
That definitely sounds, especially you play with two legends, Cheetah Chrome and James, which is that's incredible, dude.
Yeah, and we did like a medley of Ain't It Fun and Open Up and Bleed, and then went into some Stooges songs. So it was just like amazing. John Waters was the host. It was, for one I've been involved in, that's got to be that's going to be the most memorable. It was recent though, and there's been so many, so it kind of, feels funny to say that. But the truth is, I got to sing both Dead Boys and Stooges for like festival audience with the legends themselves, couldn't be beat.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I 100% agree with that. And like before we start talking about Dead Boys and Alter DeFay, because I do want to touch on those topics, obviously. But for you, how'd you get started as a musician?
I don't know. I was a little kid jumping around on my bed, yelling my head off to whatever albums, you know what I mean? My folks were super into the Beatles, and for years, my dad would get my mom a new Beatles record every Christmas, and me and my brothers totally thought that was a thing, like the Beatles released an album every Christmas, and the fact that it was totally out of order or whatever, we didn't notice that at all. But, then I was a little, when I was a teenager, I was a Gilman Street punk, here in California, the Gilman Street club was all ages club, and it's where Green Day started, and Roses, and Christ on Parade, all those punk bands, Filth and Iconoclast, everybody, and they were like my friends, and I myself was 14, so I didn't have my own band, but I was already like roadieing for them, and went out on tour with Iconoclast when I was 16, just kind of jumped in their van in Germany and stuff like that, and so I was always around it. I myself, there was this blues bar in Oakland, and called Your Place Too. And it was like, I started drinking there when I was 14, literally. And they had 25-cent beers, it was like a little styrofoam cup of beer for 25 cents. And when I first went in there, like there was a fly in my beer, and I'm like, "Excuse me," to the lady, like, "There's a fly in my beer." She's like, "It's 25 cents, kid. What do you care?" So yeah, I drank the fly, right? And so she was super impressed. Like I was like, "You're right," and just drank the whole beer with the fly and all. And so we got to be friends. And so my first ever gig was playing with these like old blues dudes, you know, and I was playing saxophone and would sing sometimes and harmonica. That was my first really public performance type of thing. And then I was in a punk rock band for many years called Everything Must Go, which was, punk rock and roll kind of thing. And from there.
I tell you, that is really cool. Like to kind of grow up like with that scene and be part of like that blues band, which is really cool. There's old like blues bar in Mishawaka around where I live, and they just got like their own kind of unique aesthetic and like vibe to them.
Yeah, it's so cool. There's still something of that scene left here in Oakland. It's a bar called Eli's Mile High, and it was a blues club for many, many years. Then it was a punk club for like a decade, and now they're trying to integrate it to some extent. You know, that was what was so cool about your place too. It was like all like really young punks and really old blues dudes. You know what I mean? And so it was like this really cool just combination. In those days in Oakland, the punk scene was pretty small, so it was nice to just everybody into a lifestyle. It was like, you know what I mean, we were all kind of connected, and it was definitely different scenes, different eras, but it was there was that connection there, and that was amazing.
Oh, for
and
sure.
Those guys, I mean, it's like the original punk rock, the blues, obviously, that underground circuit,
Not too many people could think like that, but definitely like that blues was it was underground, and they had obviously with like the way the clubs are set up, kind of wasn't very underground, that people didn't talk about it a whole lot, but like people who knew. Yeah,
and there would be classic people that went on to influence music. They wouldn't have a radio hit or anything, but on that circuit they were legends, and it was done. It was a family, much like how punk rock is now. It was you show up and contribute to it, and it reciprocates, and that's how it works. So yeah, in a lot of ways it was the same social standing, a hard life, but a more fun than everybody else has ever.
That's a great way to describe it, and it's definitely true. Especially like blues is like punk rock. It had the same characteristics that punk rock does. Through that era and now into the modern day as well. And it's just so cool, like that connection. Like now you say that, like, oh man, that makes a lot of sense now. Yeah. The same way that it bubbles up into the popular culture as well. You know what I mean? It's like, for all those many years, that was it. It was like what was really cool. There was the stuff on the radio, the Beach Boys and stuff, whatever. But, they were being influenced by this actually underground culture, which was the real deal, and that was the blues, And there would be some crossover. There would be some people who would make it bigger, B.B. King, etc. But it was like, there was also this functioning society underneath all of that. Definitely, and it does, as you said, kind of bubbles to the mainstream, with some of the aspects of it, and some do break out from the underground to the mainstream. But you're right. They do take the sounds and characteristics from the underground and implement it, like what you said with the Beach Boys and the blues, and some of the rock stuff they did too. They implement it into their own music. So they're paying attention to the underground.
And it becomes popular music, and everybody's aware of the blues and knows that's the real cool thing. But it's like, for mainstream America, it's a bit of it's a bit strong of a lifestyle,
It definitely is, especially back in those days too. It was with everything. But yeah, even for nowadays, like the blues is still underrated. Like I'm a huge fan of blues. I've had a few blues musicians on the show myself. But to me, I always love listening to it. Like especially if you got the mood for it, it's some great music.
Yeah. It's great that Eli's is doing. Eli's Mile High Club is like, the Stones played there, B.B. King played there, Buddy Guy played there. Like it's like classic like dive bar blues place, you know. But for years there was just no connection between the blues scene and the punk scene that was going on there that at that time. And so now that it's reintegrating, it's great. It's good. It's a really positive thing, I think.
It definitely sounds like, especially have like, you know, both those style of music to have its own kind of place with the venue. I think that is really awesome.
Yeah. It's important, I think. Yeah.
Well, it definitely is. I know there's, you know, unfortunately I know of some venues who like we only play these kind of shows, or they only have like tribute bands or like that, and they don't accommodate the other bands. And to me, that's kind of a shame. I think you're missing out, and you miss out on accessing a whole different crowd.
Yeah. It's a tribute bands. Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing that you can make more, you know, as a tribute band than you can at doing original music. Like even to the extreme degree. I don't know if you know this, but part of how I got this job is I was in a Dead Boys tribute before.
The Undead Boys.
The Undead Boys, yeah. And like, yeah, we were talking in the van one day, and we were going to play the, Bowery Electric, which is a, you know, small venue.
In New York, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the new CDs, you know. But the Undead Boys, I was like, well, last time we were here, we played Irving Plaza. You know what I mean? It's like literally because we're fake, we're getting better gigs. So terrible, you know, but that's what's up. There's a whole industry for that, you know. It's like, oh man, let's just play Journey covers and call it a day and move to Vegas. You know what I mean? You can do that, but it's again the lifestyle thing. Can you actually live with that? You know?
I think probably a few can, especially if you're making really good money. I know there's one Disturbed tribute band that like they were making like not as much as Disturbed, obviously, but they were making like almost on that level. And I was like, how? They're not even the actual Disturbed is still touring people.
Yeah. It's a real band actually having now. It's one thing if the person's dead, right? Okay, you got your Elvis, you know, tribute, but it's like, yeah. And now the David Bowie's, that became like such an industry for a minute, their cottage industry. David Bowie cover bands, like, wow. I had to quit my day job. You know, everybody's getting the call. I was like, oh, I can't do it.
At least like with like the Elvis one, like that's a Vegas thing. Like I can totally like that. I have no problem with it because he's not
that's
around
a whole
anymore.
Art unto itself.
Yeah, but like for some, there's like, as I said, there's Disturbed, there's like Godsmack, there's these like 90s and early 2000s bands. It's like, yo, they're still touring. Like, do you not see this?
They're still releasing albums, you guys. Like, do you guys play the new material?
that would be funny. Like as soon as the album drops, they include a song into their set.
Yeah.
But since you did touch on, I know obviously, so you were part of, as you said, the tribute band to the Dead Boys, the Undead Boys, and now you became the vocalist for the Dead Boys. Did you ever think while you were like performing with the Undead Boys that you'd actually be a part of Dead Boys?
By the end, well, sort of, yeah. By the end, I was like, oh, I had been tipped off. Like Cheetah is like interested. You know what I mean? So it was like, yes, there was about a year where I was like, oh my God, I think this is going to segue, you know. But of course, I didn't think it was ever going to be called the Dead Boys. You know what I mean? I still thought it would just be, I would play for Cheetah, and that was the original idea, is I would play for Cheetah Chrome, you know, Cheetah Chrome band, called. And it was like, yeah, it was this weird, fateful, I mentioned the David Bowie thing before. We were like, maybe this year, just to mix it up, because we had done Undead Boys it was originally going to be a one-off party, right? And then we kept getting gigs. And we were like, we've been doing this awfully long, like, maybe let's do Ziggy Stardust this year. And so we were like learning that album, and then Bowie very suddenly and to me unexpectedly died. And like I said, like 1,000 Bowie tribute bands came out of the woodwork. And I felt like, I'm not going to like cash in on this dude's death. He's like, you know, he's our guardian alien. I can't like exploit the fact that he just died. I felt too horrible about it. And we were like, no, let's not do it. Let's definitely do Dead Boys this year. That will be way more interesting. And then, Cheetah sent a scout to that show, and that's how I got the gig. So it felt like it felt like fate in so many ways. You know what I mean? Like fate took a hand. But nevertheless, I did know he was interested for that last year. So I have to honestly say yes for a second there. But definitely when we first did the Undead Boys the first time, I had no thinking that would happen at all. And like, I met Cheetah at one of his solo shows, and people were like, oh, you need to get this guy to sing for you. He sounds like Stiv. And he's like, what? I'm not looking. And I was really embarrassed. Like, what are you giving him with this? You know what I mean? I didn't want to like have it, it was embarrassing really to be introduced to him in that way. And I assumed he wasn't, looking for the new Stiv Vaders or whatever. That's a terrible thought anyway. So yes, in that time, I was definitely not expecting any of this to happen. It was a dream come true, kind of on its own. You know what I mean? It wasn't my actual intention.
It happened more like organically, compared to like you're trying to force something. It was just, as you said, it was fate that it happened to work out and work out very perfectly as well.
Yeah. And then we didn't really think that it was going to like take off like it did either. You know what I mean? We were really thinking to do just that year, 2017 40th anniversary shows. We had a little run up to Toronto, and we had the West Coast, just 3 gigs, I think, 4 gigs on the West Coast. And that was that was our plan, and then it was like, boom, it really took off, and kind of, we just stayed on it. It was, it felt fated. It felt like it was meant to happen in a way. It's the kind of thing you wouldn't want to force too,
Yeah, for sure. And it's just so cool. I just like the story sounds like it was like written before ahead of time, but it just happened so organically and naturally. And I think that's why like you guys are going very strong, is because you guys aren't trying to force stuff like with trying to do it. You're just going out. You guys are having fun, and I think and you exposed a bunch of people to Dead Boys who might, like me, like I'm only 24. I definitely did not grow up in that time era, but to see it and to see it live, which I'm going to be coming up here next month, I'm very excited. I think is really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of an amazing head trip for me on the whole thing, is like that, the realization that I'm now part of the legacy of it. There are people that just, and they, they peripherally were aware of the Dead Boys, New Sonic Producer, and then came and saw our show, and now Dead Boys is, they were younger, and that was the first time it really caught fire with them. And now Dead Boys was like their favorite band and stuff like that. And just like the realization that happened and that I was a part of that, like history of it is really, that's like, wow. That I did not ever think about that. As, like, keep at it, kid. You're going to end up, part of the Dead Boys legacy. Like that. No, that had not occurred.
I totally get you, but it's got to be a trip to like, because I see like the tour posters coming up. It's like they show obviously you with the band and Dead Boys and all the cool bands you guys will be touring with and performing with. It's got to be such a trip.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, obviously, it's wonderful, and it's like I'm getting used to it now. I think I'm settling in. I'm resigned to the fact that this has happened. Definitely, at first, I was like, this isn't real, right? Like somebody's gonna wake me up or something. It's like something's gonna pop this bubble. I don't know. It was like, but now I'm kind of realizing, no, it's all you got to do is focus and do your job, and all of that other stuff kind of falls into line, really, if you're honest and if you're like, giving it heart and doing it justice.
Oh, definitely. And now for you, like I know you talked about this in a few other interviews, but like, did you have any like reservations, being a part of the Dead Boys and using the name Dead Boys for touring?
Yeah, like I have mentioned this before in interviews for sure, but yeah, I fought against it like adamantly. I was like, no, this isn't the Dead Boys. We're still Cheetah Chrome band, you know. But it was like, yeah, there was this whole triangle of issues. Like when Blitz was with us, it was like he was like, no, I'm not gonna play in the Cheetah Chrome. I'm not in Cheetah's band, you know. This is our music together, and this is Dead Boys. And then the other thing was the promoters were just calling it Dead Boys anyway. You know, we were like, that's what we called it. Was like Cheetah Chrome and Johnny Blitz play Young, Loud, and Snotty in its entirety for the 40th anniversary. It's like, that is not a band name. That's like a run-on sentence, you know? And so we would show up and the marquee would be all Dead Boys. And we'd be like, damn it. So then we didn't, you know what I mean? We suffered the, you know, the lesser promotion for it, you know what I mean? And the lesser take at the door. And it still said Dead Boys up there anyway. So what are we going to do? You know, it was just like, give in. It is what it is. Yeah. And obviously we're playing Dead Boys. That's what we're playing, you know. And we're delivering the same show as that was, you know, even all those years ago. Although with much older clientele, obviously.
But yeah, no, marketing wise, I mean, it makes the most sense. And obviously that huge run on sentence, I don't think that really fits too well in any marquee, unless it's like the Whiskey Go-Go.
Ridiculous. People are like, what is this? You know, read the whole thing. Yeah, but it's like a paragraph. You know, it doesn't work. You need a band name of some kind. You have to admit it.
Yeah, but that whole paragraph would take up the whole like poster for the show, so it would just be that.
And then a little picture of Cheetah at the bottom. It's like, this isn't working.
I did want to talk about, so obviously you're gonna be part of the Dead Boys for the Reanimated Tour coming up, starting on October 5th, which you'll be touring with the Briefs and another great guest who I've had on the show before, Susie Moon. I'll be seeing you guys in Indianapolis. Like, for me, someone who has not seen Dead Boys live, what can I expect?
A very visceral experience of original 1977 punk rock, you know, the real deal, like delivered as it should be, you know.
That is what I like to hear. I'm definitely looking forward to it. You got this is a pretty lengthy tour, covering the October and actually pretty much all of October. It's really cool. So for you, like, how do you prepare for a tour?
Well, you have to remember to bring socks, but honestly, Alter DeFay just went up and down the West Coast the last 2 weeks, and I totally forgot to bring any socks. So I gotta say, I don't do anything. I don't do anything at all. I just get in the van.
That's probably the coolest answer I've had for that question in all the seasons I've done this. That is punk rock to a T.
Crazy. I did that I obviously could have stopped and, you know, gone to Target and gotten some socks. But once I was in the situation, I was like, nope, I'm doing this whole tour sockless. Just no socks.
And how did that work out for you? Was it good?
It was great. I would wash my feet and like put perfume on them. They like smelled amazing the whole tour. It's like one of the worst things about tours is your stinky socks, right? But if you don't have any, you know,
can't be stinky.
It was great. It was a very different experience. I'm thinking about not bringing any socks on this tour too. You know, they're stinky. What am I dragging those around for? You know.
At least this time it would be on purpose. You didn't forget them because you weren't planning on bringing them.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is my thing, you know.
I like that. That is how do I prepare for tour? I don't bring socks.
Yeah, I was just thinking I better I don't know. I start breathing differently, honestly. I start. There's like breathing exercises that you can do in the morning, and even just when you're talking, you know. And I don't really do it on purpose anymore, but as tour approaches, I notice that I'm breathing better, you know what I mean? More like singer, how you're supposed to. So that starts usually a couple weeks in advance of the tour. And, you know, I pace back and forth and go like, damn, I should be doing something. You know, it's about as far as I get with that. And then, you know, I'll probably buy some new shoes.
I like it. I like it. So yeah, no, definitely. Anyone in my area in Indiana, you guys will be performing at the Hi-Fi Annex. It'll be a cool outside show in October with Dead Boys, The Brief, Susie Moon. As I said, I'm really looking forward to it. I'll leave an event link in the description. If you're in the area or like me, I'm driving from South Bend. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm super excited. This has been on my calendar for about 6 weeks, and I've been pacing around saying I really want to be there right now.
Yeah, it's going to be great. The Briefs, too. You know the Briefs? I mean, I think, not to disparage other bands, but I think they're my favorite band from that era, you know what I mean? And it was, that first album is just like so many classics, Pouring Them Weird, and Got a New Pair of Shoes in Them Better Than You. It's just so many hooks, man. It's like, I can't even believe, honestly, this is a new one too. It's like, what? The Briefs? I had to Google to make sure it was like, is there a different The Briefs? And it was like, no, it's really going to be them. So it's like, that is so exciting. Like 2000s, you know, in the aughts and like, early teens, my other band, rock and roll punk band, Everything Must Go, touring around Europe a lot. And that was the one, you know, CD that was just like everybody was down with, you know what I mean? And so to me, that is already a like tour soundtrack. It's the Brief's first album, you know what I mean? And I get like nostalgic goosebumps and things thinking about those tours when I hear them. And now I'm going to be on the road with them. It's like, what? Unbelievable. It's so great. I mean, punk rock, it's attainable goals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just so cool for you. So yeah, you joined Dead Boys, and now you're touring with the Briefs for this tour. It's like things just keep getting like better and better, like as like every year for you. Yeah.
With the obvious exception of when it all hit but actually the COVID break was kind of nice too, to tell you the truth. It was a time to reflect, you know. At first I was like, oh, I'm so bummed to be off the road, but then my friend from Necrot, he's touring all the time in the metal scene and stuff, and he was just like, really? I'm having a blast. This is great. We don't have to worry about it. And I was like, maybe I should, you know, it's definitely a better attitude, you know, so I like relaxed into it, you know what I mean? But still, I gotta say, really, really missed it. And it was a weird time for a pause button, you know. Me and Cheetah ain't getting any younger. I know some of you guys out there are, but not us. Woo! You know, the clock's all tick, 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 tick. that is how we'd make it this far, so who knows?
Well, I mean, it is very true with, you know, with the clock and everything, but I mean, you guys make it past, you guys are touring again, so I mean, to me, if you can make it past that, I think you guys are unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we keep saying we only got 5 years, but we started saying that really when we were like 19 or something. You know, turned out that wasn't true at all.
Well, they didn't say when that 5 years started.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. It hasn't even started yet. Oh yeah. My God, this is gonna get crazy.
That's right. But I mean, look at like you know, Alice Cooper, Iggy Pop, like those guys are still touring. I think they're past 70 too. So I think I know Cheetah's getting a little up there, but I mean, he's not 70 yet.
Yeah, not quite.
See?
Yeah, but we're looking at it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you do feel it coming. You know, in your back. You know, on some kid's couch in the morning, with their dog sleeping on you, and you're like, "Whoa, man, I'm old."
Yeah, I can see that realization. I still got a few years before I say that, so at least I'm good.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask before we start talking about Alter DeFay. Do you have a favorite song, a Dead Boys song to perform live?
Oh, probably Lunch. I think Lunch is my favorite Dead Boys song. Yeah,
that's actually my favorite song off the album,
and it's so dirty. I mean, I love doing Detention Home too because it's a less known one, and so it's so cool that the deep cut fans all freak out and stuff. But Lunch just gets them going like nothing else. It's just all build up to that big climactic, and it's so sexy and controversial and problematic and funny. You know what I mean? It's got everything. It's scary. It's got that's what I love about Dead Boys writ large is that the tightrope that they walk songwriting wise, where it's this real rebellion and danger is palpable in it, and it's also simultaneously hilarious and kind of slapstick, and it's so sexy. You know what I mean? And that's an amazing combination of things. That is part. I mean, I can't think of really anybody else that has that, balance of everything, And so, and Lunch probably embodies that the most, I'd say. So that's going to be my favorite.
I definitely agree because with there's definitely a tightrope. Some either go either one side too much or the other side too much, and a song like Lunch or just almost Dead Boys in general has that perfect balance, as you said, with everything. And it's kind of just based off the song title, people might not think what it's about, but then you listen to it and you go, "Oh, I see what's going on here."
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's so unexpected too. You know what I mean? And it gets so dirty, obviously. But I think that Lunch, when you do that, I need lunch. That's the safe word, right? It tips you off. This is just kink. It's it's funny. It's it's not to be taken at face value for you know what I mean? The problematic elements of it, and a lot of punk rock has not aged well because of those things, and people are up and honest about it, and proof's in the pudding. People don't feel that way about Dead Boys. They get it, they're in on the joke, and that means something. It was well communicated, I think a lot of controversy and shock baiting that happens in early punk rock is starting to weather with age, where people are well, but what was your intention with that? You know what I mean? Which is an interesting thing that's happening culturally. And it's just I don't think it was any of those kids' intention to be really representing the shock stuff. You know what I mean? Like Joey Ramone saying, "I'm a Nazi captain and I fight for the fatherland." He's Jewish. He's not really, doesn't mean it. You know what I mean? And that one is another good example of everybody knows that, right? But other bands are taking heat for that kind of thing now. And of course, we're always waiting for the, axe to fall on that one. But I think that it is communication in the songwriting of the Dead Boys. Just, you get it. You're in on the joke, you can tell what the intention really is,
No, I think that is a very good point that you made with that, because obviously there has been a culture shift with with things and people seeing those things and not understanding what the questioning what the intentions are with that stuff. But if you, as you said, it's well communicated, and I think the mood of the song, you can tell it's not super serious. There's a fun aspect to it where it's not we're saying this, but it's more in the joking kind of fun aspect compared to we actually mean this. Yeah,
it's dirty talk, right? It's saying the nasty wrong thing to turn people on, and that's what it is. It's it's bondage, you know what I mean, in music, and that's what's it's kink. That's what's up.
That's right.
And that is not okay with everybody. So, not safe for work, adult material, but, yeah, but it is, it's in there, you can tell. And if you are into that, then it turns you on.
Yes, it's a good way of describing it. Yes. Now, as I did want to talk about your band Alter DeFay, which you guys had some great shows in September. So this band, like for at least what you've talked about, what I've looked up. So how this band was formed in the '80s. So how did you become involved with Alter DeFay?
Yeah, so that was let's see. They broke up originally in '85, and they got back together. Just the drummer and the guitarist got together and did a two-piece show for a kind of reunion of that whole death rock scene in San Francisco, and that was in 2011. And the reaction was more enthusiastic than they were expecting, because they were, it was a really obscure kind of music, even wantonly so, death rock like intentionally stays under the radar, it's a secret kind of like black metal or something. It's a kind of, you got to know. And so, but there was all this new interest, younger generations were interested in that. And so they were like, well, let's put it back together more how it was in the 80s with the singer and bass. So they got my friend Scott Brown on bass, and he's from the Phantom Limbs, and our bands had played together for years. He knew I mostly was singing in, or entirely was singing in like more rock and roll kind of punk rock bands up until then. But he knew that secretly I was like, a death rock, enthusiast. And so he got me in there. And yeah, that was amazing and a really good way to learn how to do that, because their singer is also dead, he's also died in the 90s, their original singer. So I had to learn how to come up with the, necessary irreverence and, attitude that you need for this kind of music. But I also had to have the kind of respect for the legacy and communicate that, And so the experience of that, I don't think I would have really pulled off the Dead Boys thing had I not had that Alter DeFay experience warming it up, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's been great. And now we've been together, since 2012. So 10 years now, and I've written or co-written, a lot of material. We've got more material that's from this last decade than we do from the 80s now.
That's really awesome. It's really cool to hear for you that it helped you prepare to be a part of Dead Boys. And I really like, because I listen to some of the older stuff as well, and I listen to the newer stuff. And what I really like is you kept the whole the emotion and the vibe of Alter DeFay in the way you had the vocals and everything, and the way it was written. It still had that same vibe. Obviously, slightly different, because obviously this is 20 or 30 years apart, but it still had that same kind of vibe to it. And I think that is really cool.
Yeah, that was definitely an objective with it. It's like, do you want to do this? And it's like, yeah, but I want to do it like right. You know what I mean? Like, let's play that death rock that way, And the guy that Kent Cates, the guitarist and band leader, he's the founder, he's just got it, you know what I mean? He helped invent it, So it's just, he comes in with just like some spooky lick, and we just take it from there, and we and it's a challenging kind of music, because it also has to have it's not formulaic either, one song to the next is different, but it has to have that particular spooky kind of, unnerving feeling to it as well. And it's like, so it's just a great and interesting challenge to get, to write songs in that way. You know, there was years, I think, in my life where I felt there was just something magic and lost art to that kind of music that is just like, people just can't do it anymore, you know? It's like everybody's too career minded or too cautious about things or too referential about things, and you just can't do that anymore. And so to kind of prove myself wrong about that has been such an honor and such pleasure, you know what I mean? And we've got, you know, albums of the stuff now.
Yeah, I was definitely like, as I was, preparing for this interview, I started listening to Alter DeFay, and I really enjoy it because it is different. It is extremely different from a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the mainstream stuff or even the modern stuff that I listen to. It has that eeriness to it, where it's, it's still, and it carries that, as you said, through like all the songs, like the EP, the 2020 EP. It carries that, even though you're talking about different things. It has different, guitar riffs and sounds. It still has that same eeriness, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's the magic of it, is it almost doesn't make sense. Like, how? Exactly. And I think that the answer is just Kent Cates' guitar. He's just a master of it. And he is a pioneer of it, you know? It's partly that his ideas and stuff contributed to, what defined that era and that sound, and so he can still do it, you know. He's just still got it. That's it. He's still got it, you know.
Definitely. And like, for you, do you have to like mentally get into a different mindset for like Alter DeFay show or recording for Alter DeFay compared to Dead Boys?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a certain difference in the culture as well, in the audience, you know what I mean? So I do that. Yeah. So, other than not packing socks, I think I meditate on, what is the most important thing, what is most important to communicate, it's not so much a specific, like it used to be a specific, like practicing of vocal techniques and stuff, but it's been a long time, and that's just in me now. So it's more like focusing culturally on what would be, just how I want to present it to the public, and how I want to, thinking about what, the impact of how I am feeling will have on how, the audience will receive it, and kind of meditating on it a bit. It's just always in my mind a little bit, you know what I mean? And so that kind of thought is definitely different, Alter DeFay to Dead Boys, because it's a really different job in that way,
It definitely is. And, they're kind of, they have similar aspects to each one respectively, but they are, for the most part, they are very different, with like what they are presenting and what they represent, compared to Dead Boys, compared to Altar De Fey. But I think, again, you pull it off very perfectly with both bands, but I also think because you have a lot of respect for Altar De Fey and Dead Boys, that you want to do these things right and have the best representation for both bands.
Yeah, definitely. It's a weird thing, and a lot of people would not do it, but I've always been an adherent to, like, the David Bowie philosophy that, he said in an interview once, authenticity in an artist, that's not a real thing, which I love that. I mean, and coming from such an authentic person, you know what I mean? But what he means is, like, you are putting on a show, of course. And so it's okay. They can understand that that's what you're doing. You're the same person. It represents your art, your feelings, your personage, but there can be dynamism there, there can be multi-facets to that person, you know what I mean? And so, I have been, certainly when I first started the Dead Boys thing, I was concerned that it wouldn't go over. People would not accept that like my, clothes changed and my, like, general interaction with the audience demeanor changes, but amazingly to me, that has been understood and accepted. So I know I'm doing something right. But that's the thing, again, all those kind of issues, they do matter. But the thing is, don't focus on that. Like, you have to focus on doing your task at hand, like, as the best you can do it, and doing it right. And then all of that stuff falls into place, People understand it because you did the gig good, because you delivered, then they understand where you're coming from. If you get that cart before your horse and with your concerns, you just drive yourself crazy and not be able to do it. And that's how people walk themselves into creative paralysis of being like, well, it's not my first song that everybody liked, and so what do I do now? There's nothing left for me. You know what I mean? And you got to just be like, no, that doesn't matter. Break another egg, whatever,
Excellent point that you've made, that you have to focus on like the task at hand. You can't really think about like, if you had, something, as you said, your first song, but you have to move past it. You have to focus on what your next song is going to be, and you have to keep evolving and moving forward. Now, with you and your case, you're not trying to be Steve Vaders. You're not trying to be that. You are there. You're there for the vocalist, to be the vocalist, but also to do the best that you can to represent the dead voice. And
in a current situation, in this physical reality with everybody, it's not a fantasy show or something, where I am playing the part of Steve Vaders. I am who I am, and I'm right in front of you, and it's real, It's not, and same with Alter De Fey, I'm not Coach Mason. I'm myself, and that's what's happening now, and that's what Alter De Fey has become over time, and so it's important. Yeah, you got to have that. It has to be real too,
Oh, definitely, and it is genuine. You're genuine to both bands. That you want this to be the best representation, as I said, but also that you're not trying to be someone that you're not. And I think people see that, and I think people respect that.
Yeah. That was I've said this before in interviews too, but that was a moment for me when I knew it was going to work right away on our first tour. And I was in the back of the van, and I had been asleep, but I sort of woke up. But Cheetah and Blitz were talking about me, and they were like, they were saying to each other, like, that's the thing. He's not doing it. He is it. He is it, and that's the thing. That's why it's working, and that was so affirming. You know what I mean? I was like, I am it, crowned. On the one hand, a very like ego boosting, just very validating moment, but also, yeah, definitely true. It was like the whole thing with the Steve Vaders, kind of following me. It was like I had my rock and roll band, and just like every review, every album came out, and they would like compare me to him, and I'm like, geez, I'm not really trying to do that. You know what I mean? But it was just, I was just being myself, but I was just kept getting compared to him. And then even when I joined Altar De Fey, people would mention it because the Lords of the New Church. You know what I mean? It was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. He kind of reminds me of Steve and Lords. And these are people that had no awareness of my previous band. They weren't saying it because of that. And then it was like, we did Undead Boys. Basically, I just gave up. Like, okay, everybody thinks I sound like Steve, whatever, let's just do it, you know what I mean? And so it was like, it just happened really naturally. I wasn't conceiving to do it that way, and I didn't ever plan for it to be that way, but it just naturally worked. That's why it worked,
And that's kind of what we touched on at the beginning of this interview, is that you weren't trying to be someone that you weren't. You were just trying to go out and be yourself.
Yeah, in Alter De Fey, it's just how I just come across. I have that kind of energy, and of course, those, Stiv in particular did have a huge influence on me, even a subconscious one, you know. I mean, I love the way he does shows, and definitely thought when I was like, I'm going to have my band and it's going to be badass, I'm going to do shows, and I had visions of him. But of course, you know, also visions of Lemmy and whatever, Paul McCartney, you know, random, Susie Sue is a huge influence on me as an artist, you know. Maybe even more so, if I'm honest. But, you know, it's a whole diverse range of influences and stuff. But we have some kind of similar attitude.
No, definitely. You as I said earlier with how you prepare, you don't pack sides. Like you have that punk rock attitude with it. And you have the right mindset with it. I think that's why people see it. That's why people accepted you as the lead vocalist of Dead Boys. Because there's probably some people who I would assume who are gonna boo you, but then they're like, oh no, I actually enjoy this. Never mind.
Yeah, definitely. It was funny. I was really, really expecting the backlash to be worse, especially when we changed the name. And I was expecting the backlash to be worse for Alter DeFay too. I was like, oh my God. Because a lot of the people knew me and they're like, what? The rock and roller guy? He's going to sing for Alter DeFay, And so there was for both, an era of people coming in like, I don't think I'm going to approve of this. You know what I mean? Kind of coming to support the idea, but very skeptical, and then coming away like, actually, that worked. That totally worked, So that's cool. I'm really, really proud of that and blessed by that, people's acceptance. And I had my little learning curves.
No, yeah, there definitely is learning curves with everything. But again, as I said, you want, you were very respectful to the music. And I think that even, with going with Altar De Fey, where you said you had to change a little bit of yourself to accommodate that music. I think people notice that. And I think that's why a lot of people respect you for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah,
of course. And I'm sorry I did keep you a little bit over time, so I do. I got one more thing to wrap up, and then I'll let you go. So, what are the rest of the plans for yourself, for Dead Boys, Alter DeFay, for the rest of this year, and then looking into next year, 2023?
The plans for Alter DeFay, I'm going to be back in town just for Halloween, and I don't think they realize that. So, so I'm really going to try and talk. We're playing tomorrow. Alter DeFay is in Albany, California, and so I'm going to try and impress upon them I will be here just long enough that we could do a Halloween party, and we, have a warehouse down here that is known for Halloween parties. So I think we should do that. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then I'm back in December off of. So Dead Boys will end out in November. And then I get back in December. So hopefully Alter DeFay will do, but probably just some local stuff. And then, both bands are touring next year for sure. And we're working on so many things. I just don't even know. You know what I mean? Hopefully Alter DeFay will be in Germany, Dead Boys in Greece. I don't know. It's all over the place, man. I think Australia, I think that it's going to be more this is going to be for Dead Boys. This will be the North American tour. And then next year, I think Alter DeFay might do East Coast as far as America. But for both bands, I think it's going to be more looking international, Nice. So, yeah, that's the plan. And also Alter DeFay has a whole new album written that we wrote this year. So it's we got to, finish it out a bit, but we have the basis for an entire another album. So hopefully we at least get that recorded. These days it's hard, to get your vinyl back in time, but fingers crossed.
Well, I definitely look forward to all the great things that you, Alter DeFay, Dead Boys all have. Again, as I said, I look forward to seeing you live coming up next month. You got some, as I said, great plans. I do hope everything works out, and I definitely want to hear a new album by Alter DeFay.
Yeah, thank you. Well, hopefully, actually, we're talking, Alter DeFay's talking to Chicago, too, so we'll be in the Midwest. Hopefully, we can make it out to Indy.
If you do, let me know. I would definitely be there. I want to see Alter DeFay live.
Yeah, cool. All right,
Right
man.
on.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much for Jake Hout of Altar De Fey and Dead Boys. I'm your host, as always, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for watching. Listen to Super Cool Radio. And remember, stay frosty.